Good morning, Saul.
Good morning, Noam.
For those of us who don't know yet, Saul Kaplan, you're the founder of the Business Innovation Factory, a nonprofit that creates real-world laboratory for innovators to explore and test different business models and different solutions in healthcare, education, entrepreneurship, and energy independence. You're also the author of the Business Model Innovation Factory, and I understand that you've come from the corporate world as an ex-senior strategy partner at Accenture, and you've worked in governmental organizations. So what made you shift all the way to social innovation?
Well, I mean, I'm an innovation junkie. I mean, thank you for the kind introduction. It's great to be with you this morning. No, but I'm really just an innovation junkie. I mean, I love to think about how we can always deliver better solutions. And I started in the private sector, worked in the pharmaceutical and healthcare sector, and then worked in consulting where I was working with corporations around the world. So I learned a lot about innovation and large-scale change. I have every black and blue mark you can imagine by being a change agent and trying to convince executives to go from point A to point B and to materially change their business models. I had the opportunity after my run in consulting to try something different, and I believe that's the only way you get better is if you put yourself in new situations and learn new perspectives and approaches. So I became an accidental bureaucrat and worked for the governor of my home state here in Rhode Island and led the Economic Development Agency. So for the first time in my career, I was in the public sector, and it was an epiphany for me. It was an amazing change of perspective because instead of thinking about innovation through the lens of a corporation, which I had done my entire career, for the first time now I was thinking about innovation through the lens of a community. And Rhode Island is a very interesting community to do that in because it's the smallest state in the country, and you can see all the moving parts. I could literally see the whole movie that is Rhode Island, and we knew everybody by first name. The place is so small. So if you're an innovation junkie, you could see the way public leaders interacted with corporate executives, interacted with college presidents. And as an innovation junkie, I'm always thinking about how do we recombine the parts to solve some of the big problems we have. So I've now made the trip completely, through the public sector and now back into a nonprofit enterprise called BIF that you described earlier, the Business Innovation Factory, and we're constantly building a community of innovation junkies that want to learn how to experiment with new business models and social systems.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It's an incredible journey you've gone through. And I'd like to ask you a few more questions there about the differences and the pros and cons of maybe each side and what you've learned in different places.
Yeah, people are always asking me, how could you go work for government after a whole career, working in the private sector? Doesn't it move, too slowly? And I think about that a lot. There's not as big a difference as people think. All institutions move slowly, whether they're public or private, right? I tease my friends, in government. Sure, government moves slow, but I tease my friends in academia. I'm pretty sure colleges and universities move more slowly than even government. And you know what? 20 years of working with large companies around the world, they don't move so quickly either. And not only don't they move quickly, but they don't work and play nicely together. So the big problem that we have in the innovation space, if we're going to transform things like healthcare and education and our energy systems, is creating more collaboration muscle, learning to think and act horizontally instead of vertically in our silos. We've got to break down these silos between the public and private sector, between each of the industry sectors that we work in. The gold is in the gray area between them. So I'm really passionate about creating a common language and a way to work effectively across these silos. Since I didn't grow up in the social sector, right, I don't think of it as a silo, right? I think social change is going to require both public and private sector participation and our ability to work effectively across those boundaries.
Fantastic. That's great. And so what I understand is that what you're really saying is that it's the combination, these worlds coming together, that bring the best results.
Innovation is about combining and recombining the parts. If we can play with the parts in new ways, we can change the world. We don't necessarily need to invent anything new. We have plenty of technology that's available to us. The problem isn't the technology. The problem is us humans, right? We're stubbornly resistant to change. The institutions we live in are stubbornly resistant to change. So we need to create safe and manageable environments where we can play with the parts so that we can make real progress in improving our lives and changing some of these big social systems, which we desperately need to perform better in the 21st century.
Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense. So I guess the question now is, what's the secret to that collaboration?
Well, I don't know if it's a secret, and we share it openly, and we welcome people and organizations into the BIF community and conversation. But over all of these years of watching organizations and people, that are willing to experiment and to try new approaches, we have found a common characteristic. We call it the BIF genome. If you want to transform anything, don't think process reengineering, think genetic reengineering. And at its highest level, there are 15 principles that we organize around the theme connect, inspire, and transform. Connect, as I've already said, because innovation's a team sport and we have to break down these barriers. I often talk about random collisions of unusual suspects. If you want to learn something new, go hang out at the edge with people that are different than you, people from a different sector, people that bring new perspectives. So connecting is really important. We have to catalyze something bigger than ourselves. Inspire, because we do what we're passionate about. I mean, so many of the innovators that I have respect for, they're not creating companies, they're creating movements. They're creating movements that people can affiliate with and want to support and help, whether they're for-profit companies or social ventures. It doesn't matter. They're movements where people can attach and become passionate about the objective. And storytelling is so critical to be able to do that, to share our stories across silos. And then lastly, transform. We've got to get beyond tweaks. We're really good at incremental change. We love to tweak things, but what we need in the 21st century is about transformation. So we're going to have to learn how to experiment in the real world with entirely new business models and social systems. And that's what no one knows how to do. How do we do R&D at the business model and social systems level? And that's what we do here at BIF with our community of innovation junkies. And that's what the book, The Business Model Innovation Factory, is about. It's a vision, a set of principles, and a roadmap for how we go from tweaks to transformation.
Fantastic. So is this what you're covering in your book? Is your book then a sort of a summary of your experience and your finding at BIF?
Yes, exactly right. It's the story of not only my own career across these silos, but the work of an incredible team here at BIF that is building a community of like-minded innovation junkies and then putting these ideas into practice to experiment with entirely new approaches and business models in education and healthcare and energy and entrepreneurship. And the book lays that out with a clear roadmap of how you can apply them in your world. If you want to reinvent yourself, your organization, or your community, the BIF community and the Business Model Innovation Factory should give you some interesting insights on how you can do that.
Fantastic. And so that book is targeted both to serve entrepreneurs in the corporate world, in the charity world, social entrepreneurs, governmental people within governments. You sort of encompass all of these people as long as they're passionate by social innovation. Is that right?
All leaders, regardless of what their context is, are going to have to learn how to reinvent themselves in the 21st century. They're going to have to learn how to reinvent their business models and their communities and themselves. It doesn't matter whether you're running a company, a school, or a government agency. And what we try to do and what I lay out in the book is provide some insights, some examples, and some specific practices that you can use if you recognize, like we do, that you're going to have to reinvent yourself in the 21st century.
Fabulous. And you talked about the importance of storytelling and stories. In the book, what's your favorite story? Is there one story that stands out for you, or that you're particularly inspired by?
Well, we love stories. I mean, stories are the way people get emotionally connected. Stories are what we're passionate about. You know, we don't get passionate about lengthy business plans or PowerPoint presentations. We get passionate about peoples and groups and that share stories that I can connect to and that I can participate with. The book is loaded, with stories ranging from corporate stories like Blockbusters and Netflix, or Sony and Apple, or social ventures, that we look at where people are beginning to reinvent the way we deliver value to citizens in our communities or in our healthcare systems or in our education systems. I mean, we can learn from these stories, and we need to get comfortable contributing our stories in an open way, so that we can get better faster, because that's the goal for all of us. We have to learn how to get better faster, and you do that by hanging out at the edge where the knowledge flows are the greatest, where we can collide with the most unusual of suspects so that we can tap into the gray area between our silos. And if we do that, we can change the world.
Fantastic, brilliant. So my very last question will be about the comment you made about Rhode Island being the smallest state in the country.
Yeah.
Now,
Right.
there's a book that's called Small is Beautiful. And it's something that sometimes I feel like we've forgotten, and that we're now obsessed with bigger, better, and that we think that the bigger, the better. Would you say that your experience in Rhode Island has sort of got anything to do with the small is beautiful?
Yeah, well, if you're small, you have no choice but to be great, right? Because you can't compete like the larger communities or the larger companies. So you have to play a different game. And that's what innovation is all about. So if you're small, you have an inherent advantage if you know how to play that, if you know how to play that card. And Rhode Island, being the smallest state, has the opportunity to be a real world laboratory. But other communities can do the same thing. Other companies can do the same thing. You have to stop competing, playing the same game that everyone else is playing, and you have to learn how to design, prototype, and test entirely new ways to deliver value to your customers or to solve problems in the real world. So yeah, absolutely. Small is good if you're an innovation junkie.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. And I think that this is going to be a very nice place to finish on this inspiring note for all the people out there who are running small organizations, whether they're companies, charities, social enterprises. This is a book that's going to help you look at your organization differently, and maybe think about the fact that being small is an advantage for you. Is there any other note you want to leave us with? Any other thoughts?
Just no, it's a pleasure to be with you. I really enjoy the work that you're doing. I'm glad we're connected. Thanks for taking the time today. People can look for me on Twitter at SKAP5, where I'm very active. They can find information about the book, The Business Model Innovation Factory, at bmifbook.com, and they can check out what we're doing at BIF at businessinnovationfactory.com. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Saul, for taking the time to share your insight with us.